Welcome to this episode of the Event Manager Podcast by Skift Meetings, the podcast for curious event professionals embracing the future of business events. My name is Miguel Neves, and I'm the editor-in-chief of Skift Meetings. And in this episode titled Fashion, Food, and the Secrets of Building Personal Connections, I have the pleasure of speaking with Sofia Crokos, founder and creative director of Sofia Crokos Events. Sofia is known for offering detailed curation, design, and production of luxury events. She works on celebrity parties, extravagant global weddings, milestone birthdays, product launches, and charity events. So how does she do this? Part of it is being a source of support, guidance, and expertise for all of her clients. If you want to learn more about Sofia's work, then keep listening. I'm sure you will enjoy our conversation. Lastly, don't forget to check out the other episodes of the podcast on our website or via your favorite podcast service. Hello and welcome to the Event Manager Podcast by Skift Meetings. I am delighted to have the founder and creative director of Sofia Crokos Events, Sofia Crokos. Welcome, Sofia, to the podcast.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm excited to do this with you this morning.
Sofia, you are an expert VIP event planner in the New York region. You have amazing list of clients. You also own a restaurant. There's a lot of interesting details about your professional life and everything around that. But I'd love for you to introduce yourself, however you want to do that. And particularly, I'd love to kind of get an impression of the first time that you came in contact with the event industry. So when you realized there was a thing that was the event industry, and then take us to kind of today, if you will.
Sure. So really my first sort of opening of schooling and background was business. And it was more my dad's idea, not mine, because I always wanted fashion. And, his thing, growing up Greek, of course, Greek parents are always like, what, how are you going to feed yourself with fashion? What is fashion? You need to go into business and you need to, make a career out of this and so forth. And so, and being the oldest of four, I was sort of the first one to kind of like be the icebreaker and kind of, do quote unquote what daddy says, because, maybe he's right. But in my heart, I was such a creative force and I loved everything about fashion. Anything, that was beautiful was sort of always speaking to me constantly. And so fashion was, definitely something that I wanted to pursue. However, I had about a year and a half of not being able to pursue that right away. And then it just kind of, I just kind of woke up one day and I was like, I need to make a change because I'm not happy here. So I then went, I went into the school. Of course, everyone knows the School of Fashion Institute of Technology here in New York. And I felt like I was like a free bird that I finally was doing what I wanted to do. And so I graduated from FIT and then really jumped into the career of fashion. And I was in that industry for 7 years and loved every moment of it. Of course, all my money was going back to the companies I was working for because I was just obsessed with, clothing and I had such an, really romance with fashion. And then I also did a semester in France and Italy. So I really enjoyed, my schooling and of course my 7-year sort of career path in the industry.
And what type of thing were you doing in those 7 years? Were you working on the production side, the design side, the show side? What were you mainly focused on?
I was primarily sales and marketing. I was such a designer in my brain, but I could never translate that on paper, right? I was in my head, I thought, oh yes, I could pick up that pencil and sketch like, these amazing fashion designers would sketch, but I was like a frustrated designer on paper. But I was not that really in essence in life because I could create, with my hands, I can create with my mind and my voice. And so I worked from, the Donna Karens of the world to the Ralph Laurens to the Calvin Kleins, and then some in between, smaller designer fashion houses. And then I knew in my heart, really, towards the last sort of year of my, career, and my job over at Calvin Klein, that I couldn't take authority. Like, I just wanted to just kind of be my own boss. I was like, I'm done, like, really taking orders and so on. And I just didn't feel the connection anymore. I was sort of promised a couple of things, in that last job of mine at Calvin, and they never sort of fell through. And they didn't. So that was a very big disappointment. And so I really, in my heart, again, I felt like, creating sort of, experiences and celebrations were so much bigger to me than anything. And growing up Greek, like I said earlier, and constantly being sort of surrounded, in a Greek kitchen, if you will, and entertaining, my parents always entertaining, and me loving to entertain and going out and dressing a table and doing all that stuff was so speaking to me. And I thought, okay, what a beautiful transition this is. I'm going from fashion, which, was such a big eye opener for me, to really creating celebration. So it wasn't like I went from, I don't know, a biologist to event planning. So it was such a beautiful transition. And so I had kind of all the tools in my hands. And at the time, I was married once before my current marriage now. And so planning my own wedding was something that I really loved. And I thought, I need to make a business out of this. And so at the time when, putting all sort of my tools together, if you will, and tapping into my sources that I used for my own wedding, I was letting people know, hey, I'm planning on doing this. I'm planning to go down sort of this event, industry path. And some people, that were in the industry, were like, are you crazy? This is a crazy industry. Like, you really want to do this? It's not as glamorous as you think. And I said, I know nothing's glamorous. At the end of the day, we know it's hard work. And so I said, well, I really want to just make people like feel so good and create magic. And so I tapped into my florist, who wasn't a big well-known name in the industry at the time, but she was so lovely, and she actually connected me to this woman who basically was my mentor. And she, Wendy, was like, God, she saw this thirst in me, and she was like, this girl has it going on. And she was a planner, and she was more of like a socialite planner for like the Upper East Side, ladies. And she saw that I had this, again, thirst in me, and she kind of sat me down, and she was like, okay, I'm gonna sort of open up my world to you, and you're going to see how I do it. And how amazing is that for someone to kind of take you under their wings and show you and share with you, rather, all the sort of top, A-lister, vendors of New York City. And I knew, again, that I wasn't going to become like this, factory of a business of, doing 35 weddings a year, because that was so not what I wanted to do. I wanted to do very selective weddings and really sort of pay attention to each one of them and really immerse myself in them. And so 8 months in, I was thrown into, you ready for this? Because you're doing your first tented wedding. And I had no effing idea what a tented wedding was. I'm like, what does that mean? I have to bring in a generator to do what? Like, and we have to build a floor. So I was quickly, Miguel, like really thrown into this, and I had no, sort of time to, think about it or to whatever. I had to do it. And so it kind of stemmed from there, like little by little. It was like, she was always shadowing me somewhere in the background. And I was always, kind of tapping into her for advice and for, struggles, because I'm not going to sit here and fabricate and make it sound like everything was just so amazing, because it wasn't. It was hard as hell. And I knew I still wanted to do this because it spoke to me. So now, almost 25 years in, I, with hard work, with, again, challenges, with, ups and downs, and really strong connections that I really built. I have been so fortunate to really create many beautiful events for really some of the loveliest people that I've been so fortunate to really come across.
Well, thank you for taking us through this. I think there's a lot of really interesting experiences there. I think the anecdote that you kind of tell of the fashion industry sounds a little bit stereotypical in the sense of the the harshness of it sometimes, and that kind of contrast. But I wanted maybe to kind of dive in a little bit deeper into this relationship with your mentor. Is that something that, relationship that you've kept over these last 25 years? How did that develop? Did you kind of work under her, or did you always have your own kind of projects going on?
So it was probably the beginning when I first met her. It was probably the first, I would say 2 to maybe 3 years max, that, again, I was getting my own jobs as well, but she would definitely throw me a bone, if you will, and say, hey, I can't take this, or I thought this would be so more your speed than me. And so she was gracious enough to really pass on some, at least a half a dozen of amazing, clients my way. And so I kept in touch with her for many, many moons. We haven't physically gotten on a call now for at least 5 years. She had moved down to Florida even past 5 years ago, and her and her husband, she had retired and so forth. So we do have a mutual person that I talk to from time to time, and I always ask about Wendy, because I have tried her a couple of times and I just haven't been able to kind of get through. We keep sort of doing this, leaving messages to one another, and so she knows how grateful I am. I mean, I have expressed that to her many, many times, and I really do believe that when someone really is able to take you under their wings and you're able to get mentored, that I'm a big believer that you give that back. And so I feel like I've mentored many, of my girls have kind of come on board that have, come on to be part of my team. And so I love that I'm able to teach, because I do believe I have that essence about myself. And I'm able to, sort of share, because I have found in this industry, at least at the beginning, now I think it's better. At the beginning, everyone was like, hush, hush, do not tell, do not share with that person. It was so competitive, and I so wasn't from that schooling at all. I wasn't the type to also like throw it out into the open either. But when questions were, asked, whether it was, a planner associate or if it was non-planner, from the industry, I'd be so happy to share if I had an experience that I can, share with them so they can resolve what was possibly happening in their, life at that moment and so on. So it was, lots of growing pains, of course, but at the same token, I say it to even my staff at my restaurant, which I know we'll get to at some point. And I say it even to my staff, now, but, I really believe that when you follow what you love, the money comes, right? The opportunities will come, doors will open up. When you are a money chaser and just, too hungry to make that, money, but not really being present in really your craft of whatever it is that you do, I think you lose sight. And that's something that Wendy definitely also taught me, like, just go slow. She would tell me, go slow, because you can get burnt out really quickly in this industry, or any industry for that matter. So that's
great advice, I think. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I wanted to kind of move forward a little bit. So you talked about the start, but then obviously there's a moment when I guess you become successful, or there's enough clients, or you have that level of demand. Do you have an idea of kind of when that moment was, or and also especially what created that? Was it, the events that you were doing were special and the word of mouth got out? Was it that you were exceptional at doing marketing? Was it a mix? How do you think that kind of evolved, or what prompted that to evolve?
Um, you know, I I think I've gotten better over the years with sort of being very more in tune on the business side of the business, right? Like I'm talking numbers, right? Um, and I'm again my core, and I know I've said this, and I'm probably going to say it another 10 times, but the core of who I am really is, I'm this connector, this creative force that, for me, anything creative is what speaks to me. And I hope I'm answering your question. I feel like I just kind of diverted a little bit.
No, it's fine. I mean, I'd love to also tap into like how you feel about building personal connections, but I just wanted to dig in a little bit into, the jump from mentee and from learning and from figuring stuff out to kind of that moment when you feel like, hey, this is actually working pretty well, and how you feel you were able to kind of make that leap was really my question.
Right. So, the part of, making that feel really, great and that it's working really didn't kick in for me until probably 10 years, and I gave it that length because even though there were, challenges in between, it still made me sort of push through because I believed in myself. I believed in the sort of, the craft that I was basically creating, and the connections that I was making. I didn't necessarily say at 10 years, oh, that's it. I don't know if I'm, am I doing this? Am I going to continue doing this, or am I going to sort of stop? I believe I just, there was a sort of a turning point where I felt like, yes, I got this, and I think, in life, a lot of us don't have patience for things to sort of, come to fruition because we're, some of us are just like, well, if it doesn't happen now, forget it, and so it definitely took me about that time for me to really, go from learning sort of the ropes to being mentored to, having some difficult clients even, to then, kind of feeling really good in my skin of what it was that I had chosen to do with my time and my career.
Yeah, I love that you mentioned difficult clients because I feel like the challenges are important, right? Overcoming challenges is really a big part of the learning process, if you will.
Absolutely.
I wanted to kind of go a little bit deeper into, the types of events that you do. Do you see a significant difference from, like when you started, or what is a good event? And then to what is a great event, or something that you really start to get known for, or something that really stands out. Are you able to identify, what makes a Sofia Crokos event really special? And I'm not asking for your secrets necessarily, but kind of like those details or those areas that you pay attention to that I think are worth highlighting.
What makes it great for me is energy, the energy of the people that I choose to connect myself with. When there's good vibes, there's going to be good results. And I really have been practicing that really for the last probably over 10 years now. That not to say I wasn't practicing that at the beginning, but I think as I've gotten older and wiser, I do believe that if something doesn't really work, then you got to let it go. And so, I think alignment is huge for me. And so what makes, our events so special is that I feel like when we're aligned with a client, and yeah, there might be a little bit of, some synergy that might sort of not connect that day or that week or that moment or whatever. But when you're aligned and they are able to understand your language, and as we are able to understand their language, that's what makes an amazing experience and an amazing event come to life for me. And I think everyone feels it in the room. When you see your hard work, and sometimes, listen, we've been given windows of like, hey, I'm getting married in a month. Can you do this? Sometimes we have these short windows of that. And then we have these long windows that like are a year and a half in. And so, so when you see that and even the other thing I think that's really important too, Miguel, is, flexibility, because nothing when you're creating, when you're building a room for, a party or a wedding or whatever it is, things can't always translate 100%. Whatever we might have shown or did on the paper can't sometimes always look exactly like that on the day out, because we have to make adjustments. Oh, wow. We thought the bar would be great on paper there, but oh my God, it's so not working right now. So we have to shift. So if there's flexibility and there's trust in the client, in us, then what the heck? I mean, if you can't then create something magical out of that, then you need to get out of this business. So that's kind of what I sort of built, myself, what my whole motto and what, I really put out is that, because energy for me is massive. It's just massive.
And is that something that has always kind of come naturally to you, or is that something that you identified as you went through business and realized that was more important the further you went on?
Well, it's funny because friends always say to me, I have this sort of one-liner that I kind of say, I'm not feeling it, right? That's sort of my one-liner when I'm with people or when we're going somewhere. And if I go into a room or if a person comes in, into our sort of little circle of whoever it is that I'm hanging out with, and my friends will turn to me like, Sophia, are you feeling it? I'm like, nope, not feeling it. So I think I've had that intuitiveness of like understanding who, like what my surroundings are about, who that person is that's coming in, whatever decision I need to kind of make going forward. I think I've had that from like very young age, but I believe it's magnified now, even now in my early 50s, that I am so much more even aware of it. So, sometimes you have to work through that and try to get to that place, and sometimes it just comes naturally, and it's all about really listening from within so you can, make that next step.
Yep, totally following. Wanted to touch a little bit on this idea of kind of building personal connections and why that's so important. And you've touched on this a little bit, but I wonder if you could expand on, I don't know if you have a personal thesis or kind of why you value that so much and how you go about it.
I value it because it's, in life, I know, we have to get through whatever we need to get through on our own, right? At the end of the day, no one's going to make those decisions for you. At the end of the day, you need to listen to that, again, inner voice. And you need to kind of just go with what you feels really good. And so connections for me are so huge because everything I've done in my life, for the most part, has been through someone entering my life for either a reason or a season or a lifetime, right? So, and I really, I'm very cognizant of not, sort of burning bridges. I don't think I've ever really burned a bridge. And if I did, then whoever's listening that might be in this industry, oh well, sorry, but I don't really believe I've done any of that. So it's because of my connections, it's because of my energy that getting from point A to B to C to all the way Z has been through really the love of people, the love of life, the love of again, connections. And so at a dyer's need, like when I'm stuck on something, I will tap into, a friend of mine or a colleague of mine, in the industry and ask for advice or ask, where can I get this or whatever it is that I'm asking for. I have never been afraid to ask, Miguel. Some people are like, oh no, I can't ask because, I shouldn't, whatever. And I'm like, why? Why go through life of not asking and being able to receive? Because I do believe the more you do that, the more you will receive whatever it is that you're looking for. And so I value my connections. I value the people that have come into my life and what they've taught me, what they've, whether they've taught me, whether they've made me laugh, whether they've put me in contact with the next best thing. I am so grateful for that. And I'm such a connector myself because I also love to connect people. So if you were to come to me and say, hey, Sophia, you know what, I'm in need of X, how can I, do you know of anyone, and so I'm happy to go through the loops. And even if I don't know someone directly, I will jump through, the next fence or whatever it is and say, wait, I got someone, and you know what, talk to this person because I think they might be able to help you out. So that is, something too that my dad, is a strong proponent as well, because, with it, having the business that he had and, having almost 300 employees at one point, and being able to help and connect so many people and, I think was a huge sort of opening for me. And so I think I have some of his genes, I guess.
Sounds like some great transfer of skills there, or kind of learning from him. Mm-hmm. So wanted to also talk about the restaurant that you're a co-owner of. Is that, how did that come about, and how does that kind of integrate in everything else that you do?
Well, that now is 5 years old. We just hit 5 years of our beautiful little gem that I call out here in the Hamptons in Bridgehampton. And that to me was, that kind of came out of left field. It wasn't something that I was planning, to do. It just, my husband said, well, actually the space that was available, because he had that space with 2 other restaurants prior, and we were just going to sort of give it up and be like, done with it. And a lot of our, friends and the community out here who's been so gracious and lovely to us all these years, we're like, come on, guys, you guys are Greek. You've got to turn this into a Greek restaurant. I'm like, I'm not going into the restaurant business. It's just not happening. And so cut to, I'm coming back from Paris, after doing a wedding, and I'm now creating mood boards. And I'm like, okay, I guess this is happening. And so it kind of very organically sort of transitioned for me to kind of go down that road. And I know that restaurant, life is not, again, glamorous. It might have that effect, and I might experience a couple of glam moments, but it's grueling at the end of the day, long hours, a lot of revolving doors, many, many types of personalities to deal with, and I'm not talking about the customers. I'm talking about, back of the house and front of the house. And so, it was definitely an eye opener again for me to explore this whole new world. And yet again, the transition to going into that next phase in my life was also was an easy one because, again, from fashion to events to restaurants to a restaurant, was basically something that was very, kind of an easy flow that kind of, happened for me. And so I really do believe that everyone should, at some point in their life, whoever's listening that's, young and ambitious and maybe not ready for events, but maybe they are, I'm not sure, should really enter into the hospitality world. I really do believe there is a level of service and experiences that really tend to like to, carry through. And so it has been a really an amazing journey with this, to know that we are feeding love through Greek food, and having sort of every sense, of your body when you enter in, from visual to, audio to taste and smell, and to everything that you are basically, experiencing, makes me so happy. It really does. I really have, 5 years now, and it's been really the last 2.5 years that I really have fallen in love with what we've created. Because the first, again, like anything, right? It's working out the kinks. It's like, figuring out where do you fit in, not that I'm not talking about me personally, but just in general, trying out, different things and trying to just really figure it out. And then of course, when the whole pandemic hit, that is when really I, and even prior to that really, but that's when I really started seeing my restaurant in a different lens and really falling in love with it, because there was a burnout moment, for me a couple years back. And it was hard, balancing events, balancing, a family issue that we were dealing with our mom. And then, balancing a restaurant, which, was a beast in its own self, and even though, of course we have a whole team of people there, it's not like I had to be manager and chef and hostess. But still, the attention needed to be given, and I couldn't give it 100%. And it was heartbreaking to me.
Yeah. And that sounds like it all happened during the pandemic, right? So that's the pretty stressful moment for everybody. So I can imagine that was a challenging time.
It was, but that was the time that, again, we were lucky because we were out here, and, the restaurant is, located out in Bridgehampton. So a lot of people were leaving, their city apartments, their city life, whatever it was, and coming back out to their homes to just, feel a little bit more of breathing space, I guess. And so that was challenging, but it was actually, that was the peak for me. It was the prior that was the challenging part. The first 2.5 years of the business. It's been the last half that has been really most rewarding that I've ever experienced it to be. So I love it. I love what we've built. And I honestly, it's the most, it warms my heart when everyone really walks out of there and says, best meal, you guys are amazing. Oh my God, your service. Love everything about it. I've come here a million times. I tell all my friends about this place. So it really makes me happy to hear that.
Do you think part of creating that experience is coming from events and special events that you can kind of bring, I guess, that expectation or that level of service to a restaurant setting?
I am the special event, Miguel. Just kidding. Of course it does. One of my chefs that was on board with us for, a good time before he had to leave, rather. He said in one of the meetings to the staff, he said, this restaurant is an event every night. we are, we need to get our stations ready. We need to make sure that, that the windows are clean. We need to have the happy smile at the front of the door. We need to have candles lit and our like I said, our station's ready and our music going and everything. So every night you have to treat this like Sofia knows this, wholeheartedly, but he was emphasizing it more and more because he knows how, I guess I was about timing. When our doors open at 5, we can't be polishing glasses still, right? We can't be, I don't mind, having a little interaction of like lighting of the candles at 5 p.m. as guests come in. It's almost like welcome, little things I can kind of let go. But every night we treat it like as if it's an event. So behind the scenes, no one sees, the craziness or the whatever, might be happening if anything of that is happening. So yeah, I think my experiences and my, my exposure to events has definitely helped in creating this next step in my life.
Really interesting. One of the areas you touched on that I wanted to maybe go a little bit further is challenges, right? And you talked about a challenging moment, and thank you for going there and kind of telling us about that. But I wanted to kind of look forward, right, into the industry, in events, meetings, all these kind of things. Are you seeing challenges ahead beyond what is happening right now? I mean, there's financial crisis maybe hitting, all these kind of things. Are there specific challenges that you're seeing kind of coming up ahead in your world?
I'm not, whatever happened in the last 2 years, I say it's in the rearview mirror. I don't even want to go there because I know people have talked about it, many of times. It was challenging enough, cancellations, weirdness of how to, create events, and I just want to say, you know what, that's past, and now we have to try to see what's happening now and what's going to possibly be happening in the future. But again, we don't even have control of that 100% either. So I haven't seen any massive challenges. What I've seen is maybe like some cutbacks, because I do think that we are going to go into some financial, I don't want to say mess, but I think there is going to be a little bit of a turning point, and I think people are going to cut back. I think, our clients aren't, even the 1%ers or whatever it is that they are. It doesn't matter, if they're, on status 1 or status 2 as far as money is concerned, but they are concerned. There's a few that just, I think, are oblivious to everything and anything, and they just don't care. And then there's others that are that I believe do care and have some major, concerns about what's coming. So I don't know. I don't have that crystal ball. I mean, we know that, as a country right now in America, we are a little bit in trouble. And so I am concerned about what is going to come about. But I think I'm going to just really take this day by day and guide, our clients, as much as possible, and, kind of like let it sort of, I don't know, take its course.
Thinking beyond challenges, are there certain trends, certain things happening in events that you're kind of seeing right now that are different to in the past? And I'm talking, I don't know, different ways that you put events on, different kind of looks or whatever you're focusing on, and that you're kind of predicting will kind of expand or grow in the future?
The one thing that I know we really had such an amazing kind of time, amazing and limited time to create this amazing party that we did this past February. A lot of immersive acts, people are wanting to not just have a band, if you will, or just a DJ. I'm not saying that that's not a good thing of just having a band or a DJ, but I think people have been hungry with their eye in the last 2 years of not being able to visually see what can be created and feel that they can sort of immerse in a crowd of 200 people and just going nuts, with like high energy and high energy and great music and visual sort of stimulation. Because I think we've, obviously all of us have had experienced, a downfall when it can't, in that sort of arena. So I think visually people just want to see like more. And whether it's, aerialists to dancers to, other types of, music ensembles and so on, people want to see that. So I think that I feel ever since we did our party at the Plaza, it was called the Ping Party at the Plaza for Love Shack Fancy. And that for me personally, because that was sort of the opening for 2022 for us. That was like, I call it my infamous word, it was bananas. It was like out of control, but so good out of control that the Plaza had never seen anything like this before. And I felt like my heart had come back to life because it was kind of dead for the last 2 years. And even though we had done events, last year in 21, we just did them on a different scale because again, we were sort of in uncertain times still. So this to me was like, damn it, we're back. And every person and staff member in that room felt it. So I think people just need to feel. That is what I'm seeing. They need to feel. And so, yeah, we're in the business of feeling. So I'm all for that.
Yeah, I love that business of feeling and the kind of immersive acts. I think sounds really exciting. Sophia, thank you for taking us through this journey. I think we've covered lots of things from kind of the start of your career to the development, the restaurant business, personal connections. I think there's a lot there to unpack. I want to start wrapping up, but I want to make sure I capture from you a recommendation for someone else to have on the podcast. I think your input is super valuable, and it's a part of the industry that I am personally not as familiar with. So I think it's really interesting to get these kind of insights. So would love to get a recommendation so we can continue the conversation with someone else that you know and respect.
It's been a while now that David Stark and I haven't talked. Over COVID, we were connecting, quite a lot through phone calls and just kind of touching base with one another and sort of just kind of, speaking life and speaking non-related event stuff. And he's one of those guys and humans that I kind of like really look up to see like, what is he doing next? And even though we don't have, this ongoing weekly conversations happening, we know that once we see each other or when we get on the phone, it's so genuine and it's so real. And he's such a creative genius and such a really just, soft-spoken and just gentle. And he has created something in the industry that, no one really has, because his genius mind of events, and just really uniqueness of his designs and concepts are really something that, I believe he stands out for. And so I think David Stark would be definitely someone for you.
Love it. Thank you for that recommendation. And hopefully we can arrange to have an invitation sent to David and have him join us as a guest. Sophia, it's been a pleasure. Really appreciate you joining us. I wish you lots of success with your future events, and please do continue to be in touch and tell us about your experiences, your designs, and your restaurant. Love to hear about that. So thank you for your time. I appreciate you being with us.
Thank you as well, Miguel. It was a pleasure. And best of luck on this podcast as well.